I think my guest may have read this verse in the Psalms. Let this be recorded, written down, for a generation to come, so that a people not yet born will praise the Lord. That's Psalm 102, verse 18. Tom McQueen from Florida has embraced the task of instilling his faith in the next generation, and especially his grandson. Letters to Ethan, a grandfather's legacy of life and love. The president of the American Family Foundation is with us, and what a delight and inspiration, Tom.
Thank you, Moira. It's so great to be here. It's a blessing to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
You're on a mission that I am happy, I am thrilled to champion. But first, let's go to the main man. Who is Ethan?
Ethan's my grandson. He's almost 2.5, and he lives down with my son and his wife in Florida, and with my granddaughter, Kaylin. So.
Oh, you're a good grandparent. We've got pictures.
Good.
So
that's a great thing.
This is brand new baby Ethan.
Yes. That was when he was born in the hospital, and I got to hold him for the first time. It was very exciting.
Now, this is not your first grandchild, is it?
Kaylin's 8 years old.
Kaylin's
and
8, okay.
So Ethan came along 2-3 years ago, and there's my son. He's at the firehouse. He loves to get up in the fire trucks now, play with the fire helmets, and do all kinds of things. That's when he was very young. There's a picture of my son and Ethan and myself.
3 generations. So Daddy's a fireman.
That's right. Daddy's a fireman. And that's one of my favorite pictures of Ethan right there holding him. He's grabbing the tie and he's got the foot in the pocket, so that's pretty cool.
You are loving being a grandpa.
There's nothing like being a grandparent. It's the greatest experience in the world. I always tell my son and my daughter, you know, I pick the kids up, have fun with them, drop them back, and then they have to do all the rest of the work. So it works out great that way.
And we have Ethan to thank for a real treasure chest.
Thank you.
Just how did your heart become ignited to do this?
You know, I started to write letters to my son. I was in the birthing room when my son Joe was born. And I was so blown away by the miracle of life that God brings into the world that I went home that night and I was by myself, and I took out a pen and a pad and I wrote him a letter. And I just recounted what happened that day in the birthing room and how overwhelmed I was that God sent this miracle of life to my wife and myself. And on his birthday every year for many years thereafter, we would write him a letter. And when he got married about 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I gave him that collection of letters as a legacy that he could pass along to his children and grandchildren.
So wonderful.
And then when Ethan came along, this was so strange. I met my pastor in the hospital when I went to visit Ethan on that picture that you showed. And my pastor had known that I had written these letters to Joe. And he said, you know, I know you wrote letters to Joe. He goes, now you have 30 years of mistakes and miracles in your own life. And as a marriage and family therapist, he goes, if you could write one book that would kind of, for Ethan, summarize the challenges and obstacles and give him a way to approach life, and not just for him, but for any child that would read the book, he said, what would you write? And then we kind of just parted. And I went home that night and I did the same thing. I picked up a pen and I started to write Dear Ethan, and from there came the book.
I love that. Mistakes to miracles. It's all in here. But the marvelous thing is that, we've got on average page and a half per entry, 33 letters.
Yes, they're very brief letters. Short. Yes, they're 2 or 3 pages, and they're themes that kids deal with today. They're about faith, hope, love, responsibility, integrity, drugs and alcohol, death. I mean, those are things that I think parents and grandparents need to talk to their kids more about, because it helps them deal with those life issues as they get older. And
you've seized some of your favorite things, which I'm sure are your favorite things too. The poem Footprints, Man in the Glass, A Solitary Life, a favorite Christmas card. I love that.
Absolutely.
Prose. They're all in here.
Yes, I just have a collection of those, and you know, in addition to what I've gained from other people, you know, I wanted to share with him, and I tell him in the book, I said, Ethan, I don't want you to do what I did. You know, I don't want you to become the person I become. I want you to become your own person, but I want you to look at what I've done, you know, review those mistakes and miracles, and then make decisions, you know, based on your own life and your own intellect and emotions and will, the gifts that God gave you to make your own choices.
My favorite quote in the book, lots of famous people quoted in these pages.
Yes.
Alex Haley said, when an old person dies, it's like a library burning.
Absolutely. You know, it's in different cultures, it's amazing, you know, the respect and the, you know, admiration that senior citizens are given for the wisdom that they have. And we don't do that all over. And that was such a great quote because it's so meaningful to me because, you know, I watch children, and people will always ask me, Moira, do, you know, young people sit down and listen to their grandparents? Of course they do. I see it all the time. It's being available to those children, you know, being willing to sit down and listen to them. But they do listen because they want to know, and they're curious about what happened in my era, you know, and to find out, you know, what we did, you know, the things we enjoyed, the challenges that we had, so that they can kind of frame their own references for life.
Just nothing to compare with life experience.
Nothing.
And out of this comes a national challenge. Well, I would say an international challenge, because this applies to anyone hearing this. But it's a national campaign in the U.S. Tell us about it.
Yes, we have a national campaign that's called the Child Protection Team. And one of the sad things is that a child is abducted. In the time that we're on the air here today, there may be 10 or 15 children abducted. And that has to stop. I mean, that's just a tragedy, as you can well imagine. So as a part of Legacy Nation USA, we've started this child protection team. And it's a great technology. You know, we're trying to equip parents with more resources that they can have and use in the event that not only is if their child is abducted, but also if they're exploited. Because as you well know, technology can be as much of an evil and a curse as it is a blessing. And there are a lot of, you know, minefields out there that children need to navigate. So that's one of our main campaigns, and we're excited about that.
One of them. Now another one is pick up the pen.
Absolutely.
Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa.
Absolutely.
And get writing letters.
Absolutely. People ask me, you know, well, do I have to write a book? Well, of course you don't. You know, you can pick up a pen. I had people that came to see me in 30 years of being a marriage and family therapist who lost a loved one. And they would sit down and they were trying to deal with the grief of that loss. And they would say to me, this was kind of like a common theme. They would say, you know, my parents or grandparents left me a house or a car or a box of photographs, and that was nice. But what I really wish they had left me was a note or a letter with some advice or some perspective on life, and I don't have anything like that. And that's what they were grieving about. Of course, they were grieving the loss of the person they loved, but they had left them nothing intrinsically that they could use to help guide their own lives. And so I thought that was so important. So as part of Legacy Nation, anyone can go on our website at no cost and leave that letter for their child or grandchild and print it out or keep it or send it to them. It's a great thing, and I hope that your viewers take advantage of that.
Can be just so simple, so personal. It can be something you do right there where you are, put it in an envelope and give it or leave it for
Absolutely.
that child or grandchild. You know, Erik Erikson's stages of human development,
Absolutely.
The secret of midlife, generativity versus stagnation. You can actually be involved in life building.
And people tell us, all the research shows that on average, this is a shocking statistic, that parents spend less than 1 minute per day with their children in meaningful conversation. Not how you doing, hope you have a great day at school or anything like that, but in meaningful conversation like how was your day, is there anything that's troubling you, less than 1 minute per day. So even more important to be able to sit down and record some of those life experiences, as you use the term and I use the term, mistakes and miracles, that our children can learn from.
Well, I've shared my favorite quote. I'd like you to tell my favorite story.
Okay.
And we all need to hear this. Is it enough if I just give you the hook of a quiz?
Absolutely.
You had an unforgettable quiz. At what stage in your schooling?
I was a senior in college and, of course, thought I knew everything. That's one of the mistakes and not the miracles. But a professor came in the Friday before Thanksgiving. I'll never forget this, Moira. And he would give these 25 questions every Friday as part of his quiz, 4 points each. And they were all easy. So we all looked, here comes another, you know, quiz we're going to get 100 on. Well, he came in this one day and he goes, change the rules. He goes, there's 25 questions. They're worth 2 points each. But there's a 50-point essay question on the back of the paper. So we thought, wow. So we went through the 25 questions, turned it over. This was the question worth 50 points. Write down the first name of the woman who cleans our school.